Welcome to Family History Mysteries, a podcast that tells the stories uncovered through family history research, the unexpected stories of everyday people. I am an avid family historian who has been compiling my family tree for over 15 years, with nearly 20,000 people recorded in my trees. And please put a review on my podcast. That will certainly help in getting the word out there and creating more listenership. Episode 250, Cecil Pierpont, Part 2. On the 4th of November 1905 in the Geelong Advertiser, Cecil Royal Aubrey, described as a piano tuner, was arrested on warrant at Lancefield on a charge of obtaining money by false pretences from Mr. Charles Ward, proprietor of the Bull and Mouth Hotel in Horsham, and sentenced to 12 months' imprisonment. The accused is 36 and has 4 previous convictions recorded against him, including one in which he was sentenced to 4 years' imprisonment. And on the 24th of May 1906, while he was in jail, there was a girl, Aretta Evelyn Aubrey, born in Carlton, Victoria. In October 1909, in Tenterfield, New South Wales, a man named Cecil Rowe was found guilty on a charge of false pretences at Tenterfield in connection with a cheque and was remanded for sentence. Then down further in the article it says Cecil Rowe, on a charge of false pretences, was sentenced to 5 years penal servitude. On the 3rd of November 1909, in a Queensland paper, says the Walgett Spectator, Cecil Rowe, convicted last week at the Tamworth Circuit Court to 5 years, is identical with the individual who passed himself off as a duke, the good folk of Burgh a few years ago, and worked the fraud so cleverly that he fleeced a number of well-known residents. The fellow's wife, who acted as the Duchess on that occasion, is now employed as a hotel waitress in one of the towns on the Queensland border. The Duke is a native of England, 49, and has served several sentences, passing under various aliases, including Cecil Royal Aubrey, Cecil Devine, Penney and Rowe. On the 4th of September 1913, another daughter with Ada O'Rourke was born, Lois Issamie Aubrey. On the 20th of November in Sydney, he married Marion Leonora Cameron under Cecil Royal Aubrey. This was his 3rd bigamous marriage. Thomas described himself as a journalist on their marriage certificate. He said he was a bachelor, born in Wiltshire, England, and that his parents were Cecil Aubrey, a medical practitioner, and Elizabeth Royal, who were both alive in 1913. Marion had been born in Forbes, New South Wales, and was 15 years younger than Thomas. She was 33 and Thomas 48 at the time of their marriage. 2 children were born to Thomas and Marion, a daughter, Margaret Aubrey, in 1913, who died in 1915, and Norman Keith Aubrey, who was born on the 16th of October 1914 in Newtown, New South Wales. On the 15th of April 1915, he was convicted of false pretences in Sydney and received 6 months hard labour. A week later, on the 22nd of April 1915, in Picton, New South Wales, he was sentenced to 3 months hard labour under the alias of Cecil Royal Aubrey for false pretences. And on the 28th of April 1915 in the New South Wales Police Gazette, Cecil Aubrey Royal, alias Cecil R. Aubrey, charged on warrant with obtaining the sum of £3 from Duncan McRae at Moree by means of false pretences with intent to defraud, has been arrested by Sydney Police and sentenced to 6 months hard labour. Further charged on warrant with obtaining the sum of £4 from Michael Peter Maxwell at Burgh by similar means, remanded to Picton and sentenced to 3 months hard labour, identical with discharged prisoner Cecil Rowe. And on the 28th of April 1915 in the Picton Post, false pretences. Cecil Royal Aubrey was charged with that he did at Burgh on the 8th of January falsely pretend to Michael Maxwell that he was an agent of W.H. Paling and Company and obtained the sum of £4 from Maxwell. Michael Maxwell said, "The accused was residing with a neighbour of mine in the first week of January. He called at my place and said he was representing Paling's pianos. He did not produce any card. He asked for an order for a piano and said that he would give easy terms. The piano was to cost £72 delivered. I gave him an order for a deposit of £4. He said he would set up an agreement when he returned, but I did not get any agreement, and the accused left the next day. The cheque was cashed at Camden on the 12th of January, and I received a letter from the accused in which
He said he made a mistake about the tariff and he asked me to write stating whether I intended to go ahead with the order and whether I'd like my money refunded. I did not reply to the letter. I wrote to Paling and Company and they replied stating that the accused was not their agent. I then wrote a registered letter to the accused but got no reply, and I've never had my £4 refunded. The accused said that he had no question to ask and added that all that the witness said was correct. Sergeant Collis said that while in the lockup, the accused said, "Of course you can see by my papers that I have been in trouble before. I've given the police in Sydney all the assistance I could, and I now wish to state that I'm prepared to admit I did not have any business with Paling and Company. I'm giving you this information to save time and trouble in gaining a representative from Palings to come up to the court. I'm a married man, my wife has a baby 6 months old, and she is prepared to pay Mr Maxwell the £4 at a rate of 19 shillings a week." The witness said the accused was at present under sentences at the Central Police Court for 5 months at Parramatta Jail on a similar charge as the present one. The accused chose to be dealt with summarily and pled guilty. The accused's record showed that he was 39 years of age and had an aggregate of 27 years in prison. He then married again under the alias Cecil Gordon Rowe on the 22nd of July 1916 at the Methodist Parsonage in Nowra, New South Wales, to Hannah Davis, known as Annie. He stated his occupation was an optician. He said he was 36 when he was in fact 51 and a widower. He said his parents were Henry Rowe, a doctor, and Ada Smew. They had a child, Dora Davis Rowe, who was born on the 27th of April 1917 at the Royal Hospital for Women in Paddington. Her father is listed as Cecil Gordon Rowe, an artisan, aged 37. He's in fact 52 at the time this baby's born. And Hannah, who'd been born in Birmingham, England, was 27. Hannah was living in Darlinghurst at the time of Dora's birth. On the 19th of September 1916, there was a notice in the paper from the Police Department Inspector General's office in Sydney. The Department of Education represents that a person styling himself as Professor Gordon Rowe is travelling around the country stating that he's been authorised by the department to perform optical work for school children. He's already treated some of the children attending the Barrengarry Public School and collected fees from the parents for same. The department indicates he has no authority to act as he is doing, and the Under-Secretary asks that inquiries be made by the police with a view of preventing any further imposition. Should this man be located, he should be kept under surveillance, and if he attempts any imposition as above mentioned, the facts should immediately be reported to this office for the information of the Department of Education. And in Mossvale, a warrant's been issued by the Mossvale bench for the arrest of Gordon Rowe, charged with stealing a brown leather suitcase valued at £2 from Edward Charles Ginn of Urunga on the 18th. Offender is about 40 years of age, 5'6" high, with a slight build, fair complexion, dark hair turning grey, worn rather long, clean-shaved, dressed in a grey tweed suit, coat, trousers and vest, all of different patterns, and a brown soft felt hat. A travelling optician. Last seen driving a brown mare in a sulky going into the direction of Nowra. And then on the 6th of March 1917, he turns up in Queensland in the Ipswich Queensland Times, Mr Gordon Tempest, herbalist. Attention is directed to an advertisement appearing in another column notifying that Mr Gordon Tempest, herbalist, has commenced business in his rooms over Simmons Stores, Brisbane Street. We're informed that Mr Tempest was a student at Guy's Hospital, London for 4.5 years. He hopes to be successful in his business locally. He then again bigamously married under the alias Gordon Cecil Tempest on the 4th of August 1917 in Maryborough, Queensland to Minna Elizabeth Platsky. Minna was born in 1891, so she was 26 years younger than Thomas. They had one child, Cecil Henry Tempest, on the 6th of September 1917 in Queensland. On the 8th of July 1918 in the Townsville Daily Bulletin, notice is given that Gordon Cecil Vane Tempest, Oscar Bay, Cook Street, Townsville, will apply forthwith for leave to administer the estate of the late Cecil Roy Vane Tempest of Langley, Fitzurs, Chippenham, Wiltshire, England. On the 20th of October 1919 in the Brisbane Courier. In the Central Police Court on Saturday, Sidney R. Burge, alias Gordon Tempest, on remand from Landsborough, was charged with having obtained £3 from William Neighbour by means of a valueless cheque. The accused, under the name of Simpson, was further charged that between the 17th and the 22nd of July 1919 at Beenleigh was falsely pretending to Charles Hester that he was Paling & Co.'s representative and that he would sell a Victor No. 2 piano for £57 10 and a piano stool for £2 7 shillings and 6 obtained from Hester cheques for £7 10 and £2 7 shillings and 6 with the intent to defraud. Accused was remanded to the 22nd of October. And on the 12th of November 1919 in the Brisbane Telegraph, in the City Police Court, Frederick C.T. Dent, 40, auctioneer, was charged that during July 1919 in Brisbane, in conjunction with Sydney Bruce Burge, otherwise known as Gordon Tempest, he conspired with intent to procure a certain result on a girl. Detective Senior Sergeant Donnelly applied for a remand for the week. The principal witness, he said, was at present an inmate of an hospital, and it was not expected that she'd be fit to give evidence for at least 5 or 6 weeks. The accused was remanded accordingly and bail fixed for £60, with two £30 or one of £60. And on the 16th of November 1919 in the Brisbane Truth, Frederick Christopher Thomas Dent, commission agent, appeared before the City Police Court on the following charge: that during the month of July 1919, he, together with Sydney Bruce Burge, alias Gordon Tempest, conspired with intent to procure a miscarriage for a one Dora Margaret Palmer. Dent pled not guilty. Evidence of arrest was given by Detective Maloney and the defendant remanded for 1 week. On the 1st of February 1920 in the Brisbane Truth, case hangs fire for 3 months. As girl may collapse during proceedings, doctor's sensational evidence. The case in which Frederick Christopher Dent and Sydney Burge, alias Lord Gordon Tempest, were charged with conspiring to procure a miscarriage was brought up to the City Police Court on Tuesday. As soon as she was called upon today, she stated that she was the girl in the case. Sydney Bruce Burge, for conspiring to procure an illegal event, that is an abortion, was sentenced to 7 years hard labour at St Helena Prison. He was divorced from Hannah Davis on the 1st of November 1921 in Sydney. The divorce had been filed in 1919 under the grounds of desertion. He left Hannah to fend for herself. Dora, as a baby, was given to missionary friends to look after, and they treated her like a slave. Hannah was alerted by Dora's teacher, and Hannah took her back. It stated that the petitioner and the respondent were married at Nowra in July 1916 in the Methodist Church, and a decree nisi was granted, returnable in 6 months. Hannah then married Charles Cook in 1923 under her maiden name, and Hannah died in 1975 at the age of 87. Meanwhile, in 1922, in Sydney, a warrant's been issued by the Children's Court Bench for the arrest of Cecil Royal Aubrey, charged with wife desertion, 46 years of age, 5 foot 7 inches high, medium build, fair complexion, light brown hair, grey eyes, clean shaved, wears pince-nez glasses, a piano tuner. The complainant was Marion Leonore Aubrey of Undercliff. It's obviously not being aware that he's in jail. After his release from his 7-year jail sentence, he married again under the alias Gordon Vane Simpson to May Rose Death on the 26th of March 1927 in Bundaberg, Queensland, his 6th bigamous marriage. May had been born in England and came to Australia in October 1926. She was 38 years younger than Thomas. She was 23 and he was 62 when they married. May remarried in August 1929 to Harold Parr. In Bundaberg, Queensland on the 16th of June 1927, he was charged with bigamy. At a special proceedings in the Bundaberg Police Court yesterday, Gordon Tempest Simpson, with several aliases, was charged that with being already married to Minna Elizabeth Glatsky, he went through a form of marriage with May Rose Death, 22, formerly an employee of Anderson's Music Store in Bundaberg. The parties were married at the Baptist Church in Maryborough on the 26th of March. The accused promised that after the marriage he would provide his bride with a car and give her £2,500. 7 aliases were listed for him in this court case. Bail was granted with £150 for self and one surety of a similar amount of £275 each. And on the 27th of May 1927 in the Bundaberg Daily News and Mail. The precincts of the courthouse were thronged with people, including many women who had to jostle their way into the building yesterday morning, the attraction being Gordon Vane Tempest Simpson, alias Sydney Bruce Burge, alias Gordon Tempest, alias Simpson, alias Burge, alias Cecil Aubrey Pierpont, alias Cecil Royal Aubrey, alias Cecil Devine, alias Penney, alias Rowe, the man alleged to have 2 wives and now charged with bigamy. Other personages associated with the proceedings were the 2 brides, a bridesmaid, 2 ministers of religion. Reverend A.C. Tempest, minister of the Methodist Church, stated that in August 1917 at Maryborough, the accused called at the residence of Mr. Addison, where the witness was boarding, and said that he wished to get married. On the 4th of August of that year, the accused and a young woman came to him, supplied him with certain particulars, and he performed the marriage. He produced the marriage certificate, which had the names of the defendant, Gordon Vane Tempest Simpson, and Minna Elizabeth Platsky. Mrs. Rowe's death, at present living in Brisbane, stated that I know the accused. I first became acquainted with him on the 8th of March. At the time, I was employed at Anderson's, with whom the accused did business. He said he could do a lot for me, but that could only be done if he married me. I told him I was already engaged, but I later decided to marry him. He made me a promise of £2,500 and a sum of £200 per year. On the 25th of March, the accused and I had a telephone conversation with Reverend Goodman at Maryborough. The conversation concerned our marriage. On the following day, Miss Dorothy Mears, my sister Annie, and I went to Maryborough on the afternoon train. We arrived and went to Reverend Goodman's house, and the latter married, after which we went to the Royal Hotel and stayed there until Monday morning, when we returned to Bundaberg. The witness identified the handwriting of the letters of that of the accused. There were some nice things said in the letters, which were supposed to have been written by his daughter Marjorie. The accused said that he was a widower. His wife died 15 years ago. He said that the £2,500 would be paid into the Queensland National Bank at Bundaberg. He said to the accused, I came from England where I live with my parents. I believed you had money, and that was my reason for marrying you. Reverend P. Goodman, minister of the Baptist Church at Maryborough, gave evidence concerning the conversation he had with the accused over the telephone concerning his marriage with May Death. Accused said that he was a widower. His wife died at Port Augusta. The witness met them at the station the following day, and they proceeded per motor car to the witness's residence, where the accused and Miss Death went through a form of marriage. And this concluded the case for the defence, and he was committed for trial at the Circuit Court in Bundaberg on the 16th of June. The accused applied for bail. The accused, a tall, sallow man, followed the proceedings closely. He busily applied pencil to paper, taking notes of the evidence with a serious zest. He was not legally presented. The outstanding feature of the case was the supposed brilliant imagination of the accused, which was reflected in 2 letters which he allegedly sent to Miss May Rosedarth, the principal witness. The letters purported to have come from his daughter, in which sundry references in the character and intentions of the accused were made. The fact that the accused had no daughter renders the letters all the more interesting. He is a dealer in musical instruments, 51 years of age, and was charged with committing bigamy by going through a form of marriage with May Rosedarth during the lifetime of his legal wife, Minna Elizabeth Platsky. The latter was in court during the hearing of the case. The first witness for the Crown was Robert Angus, plainclothes constable stationed at Bundaberg, who said on the 14th of April at 10:30 p.m, the accused, Simpson, called at the police station and said that he committed bigamy and he wished to make a statement. The witness was asked what his motive was in coming to the police station and making that statement. He said, I suppose that you are aware that I was married to Rosedarth at Maryborough in March. The witness said he had heard this was the case, and the accused then replied, that is right. Today we had a bit of a quarrel and she said that I had deceived her and she wanted a divorce. I told her I would never give her a divorce, and she said, if you do not give me grounds for divorce, I'll give you grounds for one. On the face of that, I came around to tell you that I have done so, she will be free. In December 1928, the warrant for the arrest of Cecil Royal Aubrey, charged with wife desertion, has been cancelled at the request of the complainant. Marion died in Bathurst in 1964. On the 1st of October 1930 in the New South Wales Police Gazette at Blaney, The following is an amended description of Gordon Simpson, wanted on warrant, charged with fraudulent appropriating. 62 years of age, 5 foot 5 inches high, proportionate build, 10 stone in weight, fresh complexion, grey hair, blue eyes, defective eyes, scar on inner side of left forearm, teeth missing from front of lower jaw and several missing from the upper jaw. Identical with Gordon Vane Tempest Simpson, Sydney Bruce Burge or Dr. Burge, Gordon Tempest, Cecil Aubrey Pierpont, Cecil Royal Aubrey, Cecil Devine, Thomas Henry Penney, Cecil Rowe, who was convicted at the Circuit Court Burgh in June 1927 and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment on a charge of bigamy. Released on the 15th of February 1929, it may be possible to locate the offender making inquiries amongst the clergy, as he is a repairer and tuner of church organs and carries credentials from various Church of England clergymen. In June 1931, he pops up in Parks under an alias of Gordon Simpson, impersonating a doctor. He was fined £50 for stealing from a church. Bespectacled and pious-looking, Gordon Simpson, 66, belies in his appearance the police description of him as one of the oldest and most astute criminals in the state. He was sentenced at the Bathurst Quarter Sessions to 23 months hard labour for misappropriating £20 from the funds of Browns Creek Methodist Church. Judge Thompson at first sentenced Simpson to 2 years jail, but at Simpson's request reduced it to 23 months as Simpson declared it would save him much suffering under jail regulations. Simpson, it was stated, began his career of crime when a young man. Up until yesterday, he'd received jail sentences aggregating to more than 40 years for such offences as bigamy and conspiracy to bring about an illegal operation and false pretences. After being convicted at the Parks Police Court of impersonating a doctor, Simpson went to Blaney. There he became associated with the Methodist Church and the Church of England people, and several times officiated as a lay preacher. He was also very proficient at the organ and played at several church functions. When the trustees of the Browns Creek Methodist Church decided to buy an organ, Simpson said that he had an excellent second-hand instrument that could be obtained from Wellington, New South Wales for £20 and undertook to get it. This money was handed to him, and one trustee remarked that it was a strange thing to trust a comparative stranger with the amount. Simpson replied it would be all right. The church authorities did not see him again until he was arrested. When he was convicted, Simpson broke down and pleaded that he did not want to die in prison. What chance has a man got who has been in prison? Every man's hand is against him. A man tries to drag himself out of the mire of a misspent and wasted life, and just when he feels he's reached ground, he's thrown back into the sight of despair. And on the 4th of June 1931 in the Parks Western Champion, bogus doctor before court, Simpson's awful police record. A cultured, gentlemanly-looking man with grizzled hair and a pleasant expression and neatly attired in a navy blue suit sat in the dock at the police court yesterday morning, and to the uninitiated it would seem that that same professional man was merely taking an airing in that insalubrious portion of the court. He looked the courteous type of old gentleman to whom one would entrust his last halfpenny. But instead of being what he appeared, the individual was Gordon Simpson, a well-known swindler, and ready to face the charge of having posed as a medical man. He was fined £50, and the defendant pled guilty to the charge. Sergeant Ferris stated that the defendant had been staying at the Broadway Hotel. From certain information I received, I went to the hotel and questioned him and told him we were making inquiries regarding a person who was travelling the country and assuming the title of a doctor of medicine. But I said to him, "You're not the man I'm looking for. He's much taller and not so old. You are employed by the Department of Education for a doctor for the schools, are you not?" He said, "No, by the Health Department of South Australia to examine children at the schools." Owing to a rather ambiguous reply, continued Sergeant Ferris, I made inquiries and found that no doctor of that name was working for the South Australian Government, and on the following afternoon the defendant came to the police station and admitted he was not a doctor. He was then charged with having posed as a medical man. Sergeant Ferris handed a typewritten sheet to the magistrate saying he has rather a serious list. Mr. Arnold appeared rather disturbed as he read the list of convictions. Unfortunately, the Medical Practitioners Act provides only for penalty in these cases, or I'd send you to jail direct in the interests of the public. How long has he been carrying on in this way? He asked Sergeant Ferris. He appears to have been travelling around the country for some time, replied the sergeant. The section of the Act provides a penalty of £50 and you will be fined that amount, Mr Arnold said to the accused. The conviction which is recorded against you for having attempted to procure an abortion makes me realise you're a very dangerous man when posing as a doctor, and I wish I had the power to send you to jail. In default of payment of fines, Simpson will go to jail for 100 days with hard labour. A second charge was preferred against Simpson when he misappropriated the sum of £20 alleged to have been entrusted to him by the trustees of the Union Church Hall at Browns Creek. Sergeant Ferris said that he read the warrant to the accused and he made no reply. From the dock, Simpson unfolded the story of his misspent life. He declared that on his arrival at Wellington with the money he was told the sale of the organ could not be finalised until the meeting of the trustees was held. The following day he went looking for work and was promised a job. The same evening he spent some of the money entrusted to him, thinking he would be able to replace it the next day. As the promised job did not eventuate, he yielded to temptation and spent the remainder of the money. For that, of course, I have no excuse to offer, he went on. You have heard that record, Your Honour, but bad as it is, if you will examine it, you will see that from 1889 there are gaps ranging from 2 to 4 years between convictions. During those years I've tried very hard to live decently and industriously, but the past has always overtaken me. Those who have never been in prison do not know what a terrible ordeal a man who has been there has to face when he leaves jail. He has no friends, no home, and the people he's formerly known despise him. Very few people will give him work, and if he secures a job without his past being known, it happens that sooner or later it's revealed and he loses his employment. That has happened to me many, many times. He went on giving specific instances of an inability to obtain a job for long. Simpson declared that he tried to go straight when he was released from prison in Brisbane, and in 1929 made his way to South Australia, where he was quite unknown. He practised his old trade there and did exceedingly well for 12 months and was able to save money. In March 1930, it was necessary for me to go to Adelaide to buy some special materials. I went into a cafe there, and seated at the table was a prison official from Queensland who recognised me. The same evening, 2 detectives came to the hotel where I was staying and told me the superintendent wanted to see me. In the detective's office, I was severely questioned for over an hour and was told that my record was known and that I would be charged with being an undesirable. When I came before the court, I was given the alternative of leaving the state within 24 hours or going to jail. I was forced to go, leaving a profitable business which I had laboriously and conscientiously worked up. My work has never been appreciated, and I believed it was respected. What chance has a man got who has been in prison, he wailed in a tremulous voice. Every man's hand is against him. The past is always coming to the fore with its dark memories. A man tries to drag himself out of the mire of a misspent and wasted life, and just when he feels he's reached the ground, he's thrust back into a life of despair. Simpson concluded in a quivering voice by stating that he was 66, his health was not robust, he'd suffered many privations. I do not want to die in jail, he said sadly as he resumed his seat in the dock. And addressing the accused, the judge said, "You took money entrusted to you. In view of that, and your advanced age, the sentence I will impose will be lighter than it otherwise would have been. I sentence you to 2 years with hard labour in Bathurst Jail." Simpson, who apparently was well aware of jail regulations, immediately pleaded with His Honour to reduce his sentence by 1 month. "I'm an old man. If you do that, it will save me a lot of misery and extra punishment in jail." Judge Thompson remarked in a kindly voice that he did not wish to be severe in what was hoped would be Simpson's last sentence. Accordingly, he reduced the sentence as requested. Simpson thanked the judge and left the dock with a bowed head. So on the 2nd of June 1933, in Peterborough, South Australia, as Gordon Simpson, he failed to pay his hotel bill and he was given 2 months' penal servitude at Gladstone Jail. In the police court on Friday, Gordon Simpson, an elderly man of benign appearance, was charged with obtaining goods and money by false representation. Sergeant Wright told the court that the defendant, who claimed to be an organ builder and piano tuner, had resided at Mr. James Casey's hotel at Peterborough for 8 to 10 weeks. During that period, he had not paid any money for board and lodgings. He'd borrowed money which had not been repaid from the licensee. The defendant had at various times gone under a number of aliases and had several previous convictions recorded against him in this and other states for similar offences. His solicitor of Peterborough said that he received a letter from the defendant stating that he was indebted to Mr. Casey for board and lodgings and for money lent. He had no means of discharging his obligations, and he desired the witness to get in touch with the local police so that action could be taken by them. The witness had communicated with the police station and the defendant was arrested. The defendant was given 2 months' jail. And the next we see of him is in 1951. On the 29th of September 1951, he was admitted to the Melbourne Benevolent Asylum, and he died in Cheltenham on the 19th of December 1952 at the age of 87 under his birth name Thomas Penney. It's stated he was born in England in 1865 and his parents were Isaac Penney or Eliza or Elizabeth Penney, née Leach. At the time of his death, he was residing at the Melbourne Home and Hospital for the Aged, and Thomas Penney was buried in a pauper grave with 4 other people. And a little on his children. His child with Gertrude Hempstead in England. Trum lived with his grandparents. In 1901, he lived at Tunbridge Wells in Kent, England, and his occupation was an apprentice grocer's assistant. He enlisted in the Royal Army Medical Corps in April 1911 in Woolwich, London, and he was a Lance Corporal Clerk at the Red Barracks at Woolwich. He fought in World War I in Egypt and then married Marguerite Mary Victoria Ma in September 1917 in Kensington, Middlesex, England, when he was 33 and Marguerite 30. They had 3 children with 2 surviving infancy, and Trum died on the 6th of March 1967 in Croydon, London, England, aged 82. His children with Ada Elizabeth Alette Carlton O'Rourke. Aretta Evelyn Aubrey, known as Eva, was born in 1906 in Carlton, and Lois Ismay Aubrey was born in 1913. On the 23rd of December 1915, a Mrs. and Miss Aubrey sailed from Sydney to Hobart on the Mooraki. At this time, Thomas was in Nowra, New South Wales. In 1918, the girls were placed into state care, initially with a Mr. and Mrs. Gobby of New Norfolk, Tasmania. Ada had contracted tuberculosis and was too ill to look after them and was hospitalised. Ada had been living with the girls in Lachlan, Tasmania. On the 20th of May 1918, both Eva and Ismay were placed in the girls' industrial school in Hobart until suitable adoptive parents could be found. Their mother, Ada, was admitted into the Newtown Infirmary Consumptive TB ward in May 1918 and died on the 25th of October 1918. Ada is buried in the Church of England section with 302 other people in paupers' graves in the Cornelian Bay Cemetery in Tasmania. On the 24th of October 1922, Eva was adopted by Charles Christopher Appledorf and his wife Olive Blanche of Hobart. Olive Blanche Appledorf and Lillian Mary Edwards lived in close proximity to each other and were in fact cousins. It was because of this familial connection that it was considered by the authorities to be in the best interests of Eva and Lois to be placed in the care of Olive and Lillian. In July 1924, Charles passed away in Hobart. It appears Eva became Aubrey once more upon Charles Appledorf's death in 1924. Olive reverted to her maiden name of Ibbotson after Charles's passing, and Olive passed away on the 10th of May 1952. Notices of Olive's passing in the local newspaper, The Mercury, mention Olive as a loving mother of Eva Minto of Sydney. In the 1937 census in Tasmania, Eva is listed as Evelyn Mary Aubrey and working as a saleswoman. She married William Philip Minto, a returned soldier. In 1949, they were living at Malunga, New South Wales, where William was a station hand. They then lived at Mount Stewart, Tasmania, where William was a grazier. When William Minto passed away in 1971, Eva went to live with her sister Lois, also now a widow, at Berrydale, 15 kilometres north of Hobart. And Eva died under the name of Evelyn Mary Minto at the age of 88 on the 17th of May 1995 in Berrydale, Tasmania. In April 1922, Lois was adopted by Percival E.E. and Lillian Mary Edwards of Hobart. Lois married Jack Hallam, who was a plasterer, and they had one son. They lived in Franklin and then Berrydale in Tasmania, and Lois died on the 6th of December 2002 in Hobart, aged 89. The son that he had with Marion Lenore Cameron. Norman Keith Aubrey was voluntarily enlisted for 3 years in the Australian Army Supply 2nd Division on the 4th of August 1930 in Marrickville. He married Daphne Gregory in Sydney in 1940. They lived at Bungendore, New South Wales, where Norman was a storeman. He then became a foreman at the Lake George mines. By 1980, they owned a farm at Spring Ridge in New South Wales. His child with Hannah Davis. Dora married John Alfred Davey in Adelaide in 1938, and they had 2 children. There's a photo in 1973 of Dora and John with Hannah Davis, her mother. And John was a radio engineer. They went to live in Sydney, and Dora died on the 14th of November 2013 at Arundel in the Gold Coast, Queensland, aged 96. His child with Minna Elizabeth Platsky, Cecil Henry Tempest, at the age of 18, on the 14th of November 1935, in the Catholic Press. The outstanding results of the pupils of the Orphan Studio, a Brisbane Catholic Centre of Artistic Culture in St Paul's Terrace, are too good to be allowed to pass without a word of congratulation. Master Cecil Tempest, 81%, first place in Advanced Senior, London College of Music. On the 24th of October 1939 in the Brisbane Courier Mail, Cecil H. Tempest, LLCM, ALCM, who gained first place in the Licentiate Diploma Pianoforte in Brisbane Centre in the recent London College of Music examinations. For the harmony paper of this diploma, he was granted first place, 91%, and for the theoretical portion, 95%, a first-class certificate. So Cecil became a professional musician, so interesting how DNA works, and he lived in Brisbane. He married Agnes Jane in about 1940, and they had a daughter. He worked in the theatre. On the 18th of March 1947 in the Brisbane Telegraph, I will not be responsible for any debts contracted in my name without my written authority, Cecil Henry Tempest of Torwood. So I'm not sure whether that's referring to his wife or maybe his biological father returned. He was making sure that he was not getting duped by him. Cecil died in 1996 in Brisbane at the age of 79. So the very interesting and convoluted story of a man that had many, many aliases and many marriages.
If you are interested in sharing your story on my podcast, Family History Mysteries, please go to my Facebook page and send me a message. If you would like some assistance in filling in the gaps in your family tree to see what mysteries you solve, please get in touch. And don't forget, you can have early access to episodes by subscribing, and you'll also gain access to bonus episodes.